These are insecure behaviors of people on Instagram. And this is people including myself. So these are kind of things I notice that when I'm kind of in emotional upheaval or in an insecure place, that I'll do these behaviors. And it may not be obvious to me at the time, but it's definitely obvious to me later, and it's probably obvious to the people that follow me. And also, it's also very easy for us to see these behaviors in others, but maybe not ourselves. So I think it's a great topic to think about. One of the main things I'll notice is an uptake in posts that try to prove the idealized self. So, for instance, my idealized self is funny girl. Self-deprecating, cynical, funny girl. So it's almost like I'll have almost an uptake of that theme of like, look at me, I'm so funny, and I'm so self-aware. Like I'm aware of my problems, and look at and kind of owning, like almost using that idea of owning yourself to show how great you are. It's a superiority thing. So that's my idealized self. And of course there's also like looks and things like that. There's an uptake of selfies, for instance, in an insecure or emotional upheaval moment. So another idealized self is breezy, hot, independent girl. Those people are usually immediately go on trips, and it seems like they're always having the most cute experiences. They're always eating oysters. They're always having cocktails or mocktails, depending on whether they're bragging about drinking and still being hot, or being sober and thus being above everyone. There's kind of a mix of that. But an idealized self of somebody also might be that they're the live, laugh, love kind. It's just so kind. They're so empathic, and so there's almost a like tight-knuckled approach to like, I am so happy, I am so kind, and you can feel the energy of the post is not that. And so people's idealized self sometimes is a combination of all of it. I'm hot, funny, and super nice, But I always see whatever people's traits that they really like in themselves, that they always like to boost, that's what's really going to come into play when they hit a point of insecurity. It's like, it's almost like an increased, this is who I am, this is who I am, I'm great, I love me. And then with guys, I'll notice it's the same thing. With guys, there's kind of a like, they either go for the like, oh, I'm smart and cynical, or they kind of go for that like, yeah, I'm cigar and whiskey, and I want tons of girls around me. Or they'll go more in the spiritual like, by being non-reactive and being kind, I am superior. But all of it's really saying, this is me and I'm a little bit better than you. That my funny girl thing is basically having superiority and being like, well, I can take responsibility. Can you do that? I can make fun of myself. Can you do that? I'm funny, and not just on that shallow level of hotness. I'm hot, but I'm also emphasizing my funny. Look at me, So they always emphasize what you really pride yourself on. Another behavior of an insecurity on Instagram is like 9-paragraph captions. Okay, I don't know why people do that, because Instagram's a photo-centric app. Like captions that are like going into the nuances of like really pedantic concepts. Some of them can definitely be, when people write well, and they write in a way that's scannable, not a problem. In fact, I really love a lot of content that is long in that way. But there are a lot of people out there that they just kind of fill out like live, laugh, love captions that are just like really just hard to digest, and that are just not appropriate for the app, but are almost trying to prove that they're, again, one of those idealized selves. Usually it's a mix of smart and spiritual. So kind of just this kind of like weird word salad, but it's also always having a undertone of I am so enlightened and above others, and there's just kind of a tone that's like, do you really have to prove by having that long of a statement with a picture that's going to get like it? You kind of seem like you're in an insecure place if you have to post, or if you have to post like a 9-paragraph caption that's just for like a cute selfie, and everyone's just going to be liking the selfie. They're not really going to be engaging with the 9-paragraph. Now, do I do this? There has been times when I've done this. I did this about kind of my workplace releasing a bee hesitancy survey. I did this about things that actually were monumentally, like, I am going to take a stand on this, and it's because I'm really worried and want to communicate that. And then I did do a cute picture with it to be a little disarming. So I get it. So I've done this, and I definitely looked back and thought, okay, while there was an insecurity, it was more of an emotional upheaval time where it was like I really needed to have the strength in order to just assert that belief and feel like it would be okay. And I think it was good for me to do that because I was so scared to do it. But I definitely noticed this kind of tendency is really something that people don't like to read, so we got to be aware of how it's annoying. Another thing that's obvious is there are more selfies on your page than of anything else. So some people just use their account and it is kind of for their business and they are the brand. So I understand if they have selfies and they're emphasizing that, or if they're emphasizing videos of themselves. However, when I notice just an uptake of look at me selfies, and there don't seem to be, if there's not a 9-paragraph caption with it, you're also in trouble. No. But if they're kind of just like, there's just almost this, I noticed it with the kind of breezy, traveling, independent woman that's so happy being single. Those kind of people, they really post a lot of selfies that are basically saying, hey, I love being alone. I'm so hot. Look at me hot alone. And look at me on this beach. And then look at me here. But they don't have other friends with them. They're not really in a social space of meeting people. So there's a bit of a grasping quality to it that reveals them to be very much the opposite of what they're claiming. So they're breezy and independent and traveling. Well, they kind of are sad that they're single, and they're kind of hoping that men notice that they're hot while they're traveling. There's a little bit of that. I mean, if you're having actual connectivity on your travels, there's just there's more pictures with others. When it's just you, it seems like you just are running around with a photographer constantly trying to get those perfect shots that make you desirable, and there's just that kind of, again, that grasping. And so yeah, selfies. Another thing that we all know is the kind of subtweet or lecture. Those are all that passive-aggressive way of trying to communicate with really 1 out of your 200 people, but you're going to give a little lecture to everybody and everyone's like, oh, please, girl, could you stop? Or it's a lecture that's still trying to convince yourself that you're right, or just trying to kind of boost yourself to feel like I'm affirmed. But to other people, it's like, why do you have the need to be lecturing and subtweeting? So I do this. I do this in ways that I'll realize later. Like, for instance, when I kind of came out by being someone that believed in nuance politically, which just means I'm independent and moderate and I'm not in favor of extremes, that in itself is viewed as like a horrible attack. So there was a sense of me honestly almost trying to over-explain by having a lot of posts that reflected my values of that tended to be the kind of, I guess they were kind of just trying to convince other people that this is a legitimate, valid viewpoint. And in doing that, it did like maybe convince people, but it also just showed them that I was kind of like constantly trying to assert that. So it's again kind of a lecture. I often see, I can always tell when couples are fighting and when they're giving the other half a lecture, they're usually posting quotes about, blame and shame, and arguments are a thing we can transmute to then become our higher selves, and those kind of things. And that's great, but you could also just send that directly to your other half. Like when you're posting incessantly, almost subtweeting at that person. Like I've noticed, there's people that I'm noticing that I'm guessing are in a fight that both of them are posting, like you can almost see it playing out of their side of the argument. Like there are even, like some of them, sometimes people post like also scenes from movies. Like who has the time and desire to have such a thorough, almost like you're setting up a case on the witness stand where you're posting those quotes, but then you're getting to a movie scene that also reflects a couple fighting and reconciling. And then you're also going through the astrology of why this moment, Venus and Neptune and everything is completely at odds, and that's why this fight is happening. You can almost follow, like, listen, you're not as hidden and obscure as you think you are. Anyone can see that you're going through a period of turmoil with your other half, and that you're in extreme emotional turmoil and insecurity, and then that emotional state's just brimming over on Instagram. And we all do it. I do this too. And the thing is that's interesting is when I'm in the throes of it, when I'm in the tornado of it, I will just think that I'll have this really prideful idea that I am really standing up for myself, and he's really gonna see what I mean by saying this. Like there's a whole idea and rationale I have when I'm in it that's way different than when I look at it in retrospect and think, oh, look at you, you were so passive aggressive, you were really subtweeting, and you were really just trying to be heard, but like, why did you have to say it to a stage of everyone? Just say it to him. Usually probably because you aren't talking to him, so then you're subtweeting all over the place. But anyway, so these are the signs that people are in that emotional turmoil, that upheaval, but mostly the word I'd say, that umbrella term, is insecure on social media. And we all do it, but be aware of the fact that it's more transparent than you think. Like you aren't really successfully hiding your worry and your insecurity. It's really apparent to people on the app. So just don't involve the whole crowd in it, because you'll regret how they've seen you in this kind of period. And even though we all have it, like people love to judge and be superior over people that are having, I wouldn't say breakdowns, but these kind of spurts of insecurity. It's usually like that you always think at the time that you really are showing people how cool you are and how desired and smart and kind and forgiving and or righteously mad. You actually think at the time that you're really proving yourself, but really everyone can kind of feel that underlying insecurity underneath. So just be aware of it, that these are kind of those common signs that I notice in myself and others. Insecurity on social media, especially Instagram.